Did I just bungle the intro? I totally bungled the intro, didn't I?
If the intro was meant to be just a still screen and no sound, then you nailed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that was great. It did this whole intro and it was just sitting there and there was nothing on screen. Fantastic. Hey everybody. What's up everyone out there in YouTube? This is my show, obviously. Frequency Girl isn't here. That's why the intro's all messed up. I took the week off last week, and I guess she thought she could take the week off this week. There's no reciprocity in this business. I'm gonna have a conversation with her about that. But I guess we're just gonna like pick up and keep rolling with it. We got special guest Mark Maia with us tonight, here to tell us all about his comic book creator-owned crowdfunding campaign, So-Called Living, now live. See what I did there? On Kickstarter. Before we dive into the comic, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Toronto, Ontario. I'm Canadian. So I grew up in Toronto. I was like born, raised there, and then I moved to London, Ontario for work. So work took me out of my city and away from away from the rest of my family to work in the video game industry, which I've been doing for 24 years.
That's funny because you won a BAFTA award for the mobile game 24.
I
So
did.
you've been working in the gaming industry for 24 years. Yeah, there's something to
Ah,
be said about that, right? Yeah, yeah,
it's like the moons are aligning. There's some
yeah,
synchronicity
something like
there.
that. I mean, 24 years. That's a really long time to be
It
working in
is a long
video games,
because I'm
man.
I'm old.
Yeah. I mean, you're in a granny suite after
I
all.
am I am in a granny suite,
Yeah,
actually.
I told you I'd get you with that.
If for
So
anybody watching, I'm at East having Easter dinner currently with my
that's
family.
what he's saying. He's not actually at Easter dinner. He lives in a granny suite. It's that's he's just trying to cover for how. You know what? Don't be ashamed of who you are, right? You do you. Live your
I'm
life. Be
I'm
happy.
prepping I'm prepping for the old folks home
Right?
now.
Because it's coming soon, right?
It's the way to
Um,
go.
so what drew you to the medium of comic books in the first place?
Well, I've been a huge fan of comics since I was like 13, right? It was Spider-Man #1, Torment, drawn by Todd McFarlane, was the one that got me hooked. And then ever since then, I've always wanted to get into comic books, but it always seemed like something that other people did that weren't you. You know, like when you watch movies and you see superstars in movies, you never think that's an actual job that you can have. It's just like those are other people. It's like actors, a different category. So comic books kind of seemed like that to me. It seemed like the unattainable job is just something that other people do that you can't do. And when I was younger, I actually tried to get in as an artist, not a writer. But I was like, 15, trying to apply to Marvel Comics, and my art was good, but not good enough. Like I was good for a 15-year-old, right? So, but yeah, that was it. I realized that if I was ever going to get into comics, I'd have to do my own, and I wasn't going to do it as an artist, so it had to be as a writer, which is all right because I love writing. So that worked out.
Mobig says, in a few more decades, we'll all be chilling with Mark on our rocking chairs in the so-called living center. Yeah,
That would be great. That's actually a good
assisted
name
facility.
for. That's a good name for assisted facility, so-called
Yeah,
living.
so-called living. Yep. Yeah, I see what he did there. Mo's one of our locals and our regulars. We've also got Creators Outlet with us and everyone on everything. I mean, that's great. We've got everyone in the comments on everything, every mobile device, every platform. We suddenly have a giant following. Mo Biggs put an F in the chat for the opening because I can't do an opening on my own, apparently, right? He says you bungled the intro. Obviously, it's a show that Neff is hosting himself, so yes, I did bungle the intro. I need tech support at all times. I may be an adult, but I'm not frequently able to use technology by myself. I can't chew gum and drive, guys. I don't know what people expect from me. So, I guess what kind of comics do you like to read, Mark? If
Um,
comics are unattainable, you must have some aspirations to make comics like something, right? What kind of comics fascinate you? What do you read?
I like to, well, I read a bit of everything. I go on kind of like binges. So like I went on a DC binge there for a while, and then a Marvel binge, and then oh hey, Jamie Reel, he did one of our alternate covers, one of our variant covers. Great guy, amazing artist. But yeah, so what was the question? Jamie distracted me. I saw his name come
What
up. What
kind of
was the
comics do
question?
you like to read?
Oh yeah.
What comic
So
books are? Yeah.
yeah, I go through like I recently read through Harrow County, which is I think it's Dark Horse. So yeah, I guess it's not one particular thing, but like currently I'm on a Marvel kick. Like I'm reading the Gang War stuff and the Fall of X, and so like I read everything from mainstream to indie. But it's easier to read the mainstream things because you know what you're getting. So for example, I brought this up before. Um, when people have asked me, and like I like indie comics is a category, but it's just another. It's just a category. Like there are stories that could be just as good as anything Marvel or DC or Dark Horse writes, right? But they're the difference between that is it's a little riskier. Like for me, I've always thought it was a little riskier to um, to get into indie because like when you get into indie comics, you don't know the characters, you don't know the writer, you don't know the artist, you don't know what you're getting because it's all new. So, but if I go into Marvel and I see Mark Bagley, I was like, oh, I kind of get idea. I know what I'm going to get for art. If I see Brian Michael Bendis's writing, was like, oh, I know what kind of story I'm going to get, what kind of dialogue. Mark Miller can do a story that with characters I've never heard of before, but because I know him as a writer, then I'll buy that book. So it's the thing. It's like when you go into indie, it's going into the unknown. So um, I that's why I do read a lot of more mainstream things, and I don't really dip into the indie until I hear somebody tell me, "Oh, you should check out this book." Right? So I'm very much a word of mouth type of guy. So like personally, I don't take a lot of risks. I take very careful risks. So if I'm going to
You
start a new
seem like
story,
the kind of guy who's very minimalist on the risk side of things.
yeah.
That's
So
that's
I like
cool.
to like I'll like if I'm going to try a new story, I'm going to look online, being like, how it's like a video game. So if I'm going to get a new video game, I'm going to check out the reviews. What are people saying about this? What are people saying about the story? What and that then I'll like I don't want any spoilers, but I do when I'm venturing into something new, I like to kind of figure it out. And then once I establish like, oh, that's that writer, then I feel safe with their content. So
Right. So you wait for a recommendation from a friend saying, "Hey, you trust that friend's opinion." They say, "Check out, I don't know, James Tinian the Fourth, right? And check out this one particular series that they did." You'll go check that out and go, "Hey, I like that. Maybe I'll check out some of his other work." And then you find out that he's writing at, say, Dark Horse or at Marvel or at DC, Image, Vertigo, wherever. You might want to pick up one of those comics. Now, I've noticed you've backed quite a few Kickstarter comics, even though
yeah,
you're saying you don't like to take chances. I don't know if you've backed mostly games on Kickstarter because I know they run games there too. But
yeah.
looking at the just the number of projects that you backed, have you found a lot of good indie comics on there?
Well, most of the projects I've backed on Kickstarter have been board games,
Yeah. If
and a lot.
people don't know, I mean, you do run a YouTube channel that reviews and does actual plays of these board games. So I guess that's an interesting question. Why do you feel more comfortable backing $100, $200 board games on Kickstarter than you do buying a $25 comic book?
Um,
from people
It's
you've never met or seen before, who've never heard of before, who obviously don't really have like a gaming market, right? It's not Mattel Bradley, right? You're not gonna have the guy who created Monopoly doing a Kickstarter. Like you've
there's
never
a
heard of
lot
these people
more
either.
there's a lot more reviewer support for board games than there is comics. A lot of the reviews you see for comics online that are accessible and easy to find are mainly targeted toward the big two, right? Marvel and DC. It's hard to find because there's so many indie comics. It's hard to find reviews for all of them, right? Or you can try to find interviews like these, but thing with the interview, although it's great to get to know the artist and etc., it's hard to yeah, board game coffee. That was my channel. It's it's hard to find like the information I need to like is a good book. But when it comes to board games, if you go to a board game site on Kickstarter, there's usually there's tons of video information underneath it. So there's like preview videos, there's review videos, there's playthrough videos. They're all there, so you can see so you can observe these games being played. You can kind of get an idea of what it's about without any spoilers, right? You can't tell me that much information about an indie book without kind of giving away the entire story. So there's more information available for board games than there is indie books. So I do buy indie books, but a lot of the indie books I buy I have backed a few on Kickstarter. A lot of them are people that I know, um, but not all of them. Some of them I was like, oh, this looks good. You know, I'll give it a shot because I like to support indie. But a lot of the indie books I buy are from cons. So if I go to like Fan Expo or a Toronto Comic Con, I'll buy indie books there. And a lot of that is getting to know the writer and the artist. They'll be there, you see them, and you talk with them. You're like, yeah, I'm going to buy some of these books because I want to support indie.
Okay. So the getting the board game is more for the board game itself. Getting the comic book is more to support the creator. That's what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
hearing.
that's a good way to put it. But I also want to enjoy the story. So
Okay, that's fair. So I guess then if people are familiar with you from YouTube, I mean,
mhm.
and you being a video game designer, when you're not busy conceiving of, new worlds and writing fiction in comics, what is it that you do like from day to day? What's your average day look like, and how do you squeeze doing comics into it?
An average day for me is currently I left my regular office day job of video game design, but I'm still doing contract work, game design. So I work from home. So basically, I wake up, go downstairs, I work for a company that where I help them do game design and basically try to make their game more appealing to people to play. So I either work on the game mechanisms, the gamification of their project, and also making it more appealing to people. So I do that from like 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. And then after that, by that time, wife comes home, brings home the toddler, spend some time with them. Then I go back down to the basement and I work on board YouTube channel stuff. So I'm either learning how to play games. And I'm writing scripts, I'm recording video, I'm editing video. And then any gaps between that, I'm working on scripts for future so-called living books. And so that's how it works. So I'm always doing something, and that goes on until about 9:30, 10 at night, and then I take about 30 to 60 minutes for myself, for my wife, and we'll watch something on TV, and then we go to bed, and then I wake up
I
and
like
do it
how you
again.
budgeted everything like down to pretty much the amount of time that it takes to do the thing, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
like most of the
very
TV I watch is
regimented.
either during dinner because like I'll have like a 30-minute dinner break,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so I go up there. The thimble goes directly to jail. That's
Right.
good.
Yeah. Board game spoilers. Mo was, making a good comment. He says, uh, Mattel and Milton Bradley merger. Oh, did I say Mattel Bradley? I meant Milton Bradley. Yeah, that's that's funny. Neff goes directly to jail for insulting Mattel and Milton Bradley by suggesting the two ever combine to join forces and conquer the toy world. A Mattel and Milton Bradley merger would still not be as fascinating as the Fred Armisen Dan Levy merger appearing today. I'm not familiar with that, Mo. I'm sorry. I've been cooped up in my office for too long doing writer stuff. So let me check my notes here. Um, how much of the comic book making process are you involved in? On the campaign, it says that the art is clearly the work of the artist, but the storytelling is undeniably yours. It's Mark
Yeah,
Maia storytelling. What does
it,
that
it
mean, and
is.
how much of the process do you get involved in?
I'm involved in every little bit of the process because unlike a lot of indie comics, it's usually a partnership with. Sorry, somebody just opened the door. I'm not exactly sure why, but
They were
it's
checking to
usually
see if it was time for you to take your medication with your prune
yeah,
juice.
maybe. So, anyways, so I write the story, I create the world, and I direct all. I basically look at it as a director. So I direct all the panels, I direct all of Marco's art, because a lot of how I see a lot of indie comics working, and that's what I tried to do in the beginning was they find somebody like almost like a partner to work with, right? And there's a lot of back and forth. But since my script was written from beginning to end before I met Marco, and English isn't Marco's necessarily like it's not his first language. He's in Italy. He speaks Italian. So, but his English is a lot better than my Italian. So he so I'm I have very descriptive descriptions of what I want in each panel. And then he sends me back roughs and I'll draw on top of his roughs and send it back. Then he comes back with finals. So I'm in every aspect of that. Like everything you see on the Kickstarter page, I I wrote and laid out. Like I laid out the Kickstarter page. That was my first Kickstarter. And this is my first Kickstarter. This is my first comic. So that I've done myself. So
Right.
everything's a lot of first. So I'm learning a lot of things as I go.
So as far as the art is concerned, the visual design elements, that's you, and bringing in Marco is more the character work, the
I
scene setting. Like if you're doing the layouts yourself, like what exactly is the division of labor?
Well, I found Marco because I was looking for somebody that would match my style, or that could do not match my style, so do the style I thought was good fit for my comic book. So, and then I found Marco. So the division of labor is like he reads my descriptions and he does how he understands them, and based on how specific I need a panel to be, I'll go into more details. But if I just like need, say, Jack, who's the main character, I was like, Jack walks into a bar. Then that's all I'll say. Jack walks into a bar, and then Marco does whatever he wants. But if I need something specific because I'm setting up a scene that's coming up, I might say, Jack walks into a bar, but it's like a top-down shot of him, walking through a pile of people, and there's somebody at the bar because I that's going to tie into the story. So if it's setting up for a specific part of the story, then I write it out in detail for him.
Oh yeah, no, I obviously, when you're writing the script and you're trying to communicate it to the artist what they need you to do. I was referring more to you saying when he sends it back, you draw on top of it. I was like
Yeah, it's I
imagining,
draw
are
more on
you
top of it.
drawing background elements? Are you
No,
drawing?
no, no. I'm basically scribbling on because, like, for example,
Oh, so you're
uh,
not like it's not illustration. It's more like
no,
arrows. This goes here. That
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah. So like,
Yeah, no, I got you.
or
Yeah.
if he gives me a pose of Jack being like this, I'm like, no, that's not what I meant because he might again because English isn't his first language, he might
Yep.
miss those little nuances. I was like, no, I don't need Jack like this. I need Jack like this, right?
Do you ever
So
do you
then
ever do like would you sketch that out for him, or would you get like a photo reference
I've
for
done
that?
both. I've
Yeah.
done both.
I work
I've
with an artist who we have a language barrier also. We've been working together for almost 6 months now. I'm terrible with time. But it took a little bit of doing developing a language, right? And that language is made up of words but also pictures. So you can almost anticipate when something is going to be difficult to describe, and I just fire off reference images along with the script, like as a separate document. So there's always like notes that go with the pages.
Yep.
So I know what you're talking about there. That can be a little bit difficult, but the synthesis of the ideas when they come out on the artist's end and you finally get them back and they're
Well,
just, what you
what's
wanted.
actually great is I know there's a lot of people down on AI art, but AI art works great in this situation. If I need something specific, because I was like, I need a bouncer in a suit doing this, blah blah blah, at the front door of the, and like because in it might be in in Italy, it's something looks completely different. It's a different situation. So
That's a great
I
image.
see what you
Yeah,
did there.
right.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, so I'll use AI art to be like, I need this image because I can't find it. I can't Google the exact same image. So, or I need a certain facial expression I can't find. So I'm like, type it, and like an AI image comes out, and I was like, this is the expression I need, or this is the kind of suit I need. Not for him to redraw it, just for him to know. Just like me sending him a reference photo from Google image search.
Right. That
So
was actually
it's
something that I wanted to talk about later in the interview because there's a disclaimer on the page about the use of AI art in the book.
there's one cover that uses AI
Yeah,
art.
like that's what I was wondering. So it sounds like it's not. Oh, I didn't. Here we go. It sounds like it's not like a I use AI art in the design of my book. It's just
No,
one of the covers, and I'm
yeah,
pretty
one
sure
cover.
it's this one right here.
Yep, yeah,
The
there, right there,
yeah,
that one.
right, which is just that's photo overlay. That's not even really, is that straight up AI generated or is
It
that
was
photo
the
reference and illustration synthesized to do photo overlay?
yeah, it's me putting a bunch of stuff together with
Yeah.
photos and
Yeah.
illustrations and coming together, and then it puts that out. But technically, like AI did the final thing.
Render did the final
so
render.
so like and like I want to try to be as open as possible.
Right.
But it's just that cover, and like everything inside is all Marco and me, right? And the cover beside that was Jamie Reel, the comment that came in. Jamie Reel did the other sex pod cover.
Right. Which is, it looks fully illustrated. I mean, like we can tell that the one on the left is AI
Yeah, yeah,
generated. It's
yeah.
got that telltale shine that most AI has. Like there's something about the way AI does light, or
Hmm.
at least thinks that the human eye picks up light. Uh, you can see the light. It just makes her look too shiny, too plastic, the
Yeah.
way
It
that the
just
light highlights hit her. And that's
it looks
a
like sorry, it looks
yeah.
like a model that's been overly photoshopped.
Yeah, it look well. I mean, it goes a little bit beyond a model who looks
Yeah.
overly photoshopped. She doesn't look real. She's clearly
No,
an
no, no.
illustration, but
Yeah.
there's a characteristic that is typical of AI art. And generally, it has to do with that sort of plasticky,
Hmm.
shiny figure rendering that AI art thinks makes it look more photorealistic because
Hmm.
rendering light in that way, bouncing off of an object, is supposed to give us the interpretation of it in, I guess, in space, that the light is hitting it, at that angle, so our eyes are supposed to interpret it. Uh, I don't know. It's AI art tends to have a particular visual characteristic.
It does.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
we're not gonna talk about the AI art because when I saw that, I got very confused. I know AI art can be a turnoff for most people, but looking at this, I'm like, this isn't AI. This is
No, none
hands
of it. None
on.
of it is. It's just that one cover. That's it. That
If
one
anything,
cover.
if
That is
if
all.
anything, it's pencils and then you possibly ink digitally and then color digitally. But that's just
Hmm.
working in Photoshop or Clip Studio or Corel or any number of different programs, Adobe, even Illustrator, that people use to draw. Um, but this is clearly all hand done. Like
Yeah.
AI could not put this out. They couldn't put out the layouts. They couldn't put out the panels the way that human beings do. AI sucks at comics. That's the funny thing.
It
Everyone's
does.
terrified that AI is going to take over the comic book industry. I'm like, no, Marvel and DC might be able to get it to make images for them, but it can't do comic books, and it's going to take way too much training for it to do comic books
Yeah.
because it
Uh,
doesn't
but
understand the way we look at a page. It doesn't understand that way that our brain processes that information. Anyway,
I,
getting back into this. So, are you entirely self-taught with comic books? Did you study script writing, or did you study illustration with any sort of professional, or is it you came at it as an amateur, did as much learning on your own as you could, just applied that?
well, I'm an artist by trade, so like I went to school for 3D animation and illustration. So, but sequential art, which is what you need for a comic book, is not really my thing, right? So I got that's why I hired Marco, but I do have enough knowledge where I'm able to kind of like direct the work he does because a lot of my work in the video game industry was as an art director slash creative director, where I directed a lot of artists to create assets for video games. So as well as being a game designer. So I most of my career has been in a director type of format of some sort.
Right.
So, and as far as writing goes, no, I taught myself that. There was no, I had no classes for writing and how to write a script for a comic book.
That's
Basically,
different.
my
Yeah.
first script was like a train, like a long
Wreck?
sheet of
Is
just
that the
like
word you're looking for?
it was just a wreck,
Wreck?
a train wreck.
No.
the the I entered a Top Cow writing contest, and they had an example script. So
Ah,
from then on,
Top Cow,
I
well
just
known for their stories.
I just mimicked their script. Like
Oh,
they
you
had a
just use
contest,
the formatting
their
style.
format, yeah. So I just
Yeah,
mimicked
yeah.
their formatting style. I was like, oh, I'll just do this. I was like, okay, that's how they do it. I was like, there's some things I was like, I'm not exactly sure why they do it the way they do it that way, but it looks neat, so I'll just do it
So
that way.
the funny thing is that there is no one, it's not like screenwriting where there is an acceptable format for screenwriting or script writing in film and television that you learn in school, that you also
Mhm.
learn to apply through a software like Final Draft. There is no discernible industry specific standard for script writing. There are certain elements of the script that need to be distinguishable, but lots of people do their scripts different ways. I learned from Jim Zub how to write scripts, and I find that his minimalist approach to script writing makes it endlessly easier to be flexible with your design,
Mhm.
both with the page and with the panel descriptions. But once again, like that's just saying what is rather than going all all Alan Moore and describing like the emotional resonance with the relevant context of the characters in the frame doing this thing. And dude, he wrote I don't remember exactly how many lines, but it was in Tom Strong. He wrote about a door. He wrote like 2 pages of prelude about a single door. Was it a doorknob or was it a door? I don't remember. But Ian told me the story, and it was just ridiculous the amount of thought that this guy puts into the details in his scripts. No one's gonna work that way. Everybody wants to keep it like streamlined and be able to get the information from the text about the panel to create the panel to move on. But I guess like what I'm trying to get at here is there's no set way to write a script. It's more about
Mhm.
the elements in the writing, right? Like character development, plot progression, narrative, pacing, that kind of stuff. So obviously you understood the visual element very well,
Mhm.
but how did you, I guess, cultivate an understanding of the storytelling techniques necessary to kind of unfold a narrative to
Yeah,
keep readers on board?
I guess for me, it's like I do have some experience writing for video games. So I've written scripts for some video games, and and I have a lot of experience reading comic books, and I have a very particular like style that I like. I don't like things being overly wordy or verbose for an average character, and I want an average character to talk like an average person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I try like I don't make everybody. My first scripts that I wrote for video games, I'd have people like correct, like go through and proofread it for me. But they would correct my English, and I was like, no, 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 that's not a mistake. We don't always talk in proper English,
Right.
so I don't want my characters to always talk in proper English.
Right. You're talking about
And
parlance. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Or parlance.
and a lot of how I write, like what happens, is a lot of it's basically I'm experiencing things as I write it because I don't always I might have a loose plan of what's going to happen, but what I do is I'll create characters, I'll write their backgrounds, I'll know what they wear, what they look like, what their personalities are, and then I put them as playground of my imagination and I start seeing like, oh, what's going to happen?
That's an
Yeah, for
interesting tidbit of information. Jib Zump wrote a forward for volume for Toronto Comics, a series that you have a short story in. So this
yeah, neat.
isn't your first comic,
Ah,
or that's a
so it's like
a series of short stories,
it's a series of
anthology.
short stories. Me and Jamie did a 9-page short story. So I wrote the script, and but then somebody else had to like approve my edits, and then I gave it to Jamie, and Jamie's great, so he just made amazing artwork for it. But this like so-called living is what I like. I did that 9 page and then nothing else ever again or before. And but so-called living is the first one I did from scratch, and I had nobody to answer to. There was no editor. I could do whatever I want. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
and I did
Not
it from
always a good
beginning.
thing.
Maybe not, but I think in this case it worked out. I think so-called living is a great story. So, but yeah, like I've been telling people, like for a while, I was telling, yeah, so-called living, my first comic book, and then I only recently realized, oh yeah, right, we did Toronto Comics 9 page story. Like I completely like blocked that out because it was a completely different experience than going out like on your own and doing it from scratch. Because when we were doing Toronto Comics, again, I could trust Jamie to do like whatever. Like he's great. I think I gave him some notes on one panel where it was like, I'd like to have my sisters here as kids with me, and like if you could work that into that panel, that'd be great. Um, but after that point, we gave it to Andrew, who's heading up the it's his anthology. So we give it to him, and he takes care of it. He gets it printed, he puts it together, he does all that. Like he does all this. So I had no experience with that part either. All I did was write it. I felt like all I did was write a script and give it give it to Jamie, and then we gave it to Andrew, and that was it. So I was just like just a cog in this machine. So again, this feels
So you
like
felt
my
like a
first.
part of the production rather than the guy in the driver's seat, which is what you're used to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I enjoy doing so-called living, because it's nice to be able to just do whatever you want and just tell your
Yes.
story, tell the story you want to do.
That is absolutely true. Um, and you know, an editor isn't always going to be the guy that or girl that, you know, comes in with a big red pen and tells you how you're doing it wrong or what you should be
No,
doing
no.
to achieve the maximum effect of the thing you're working on. A good editor, if they're there, you never know, you know, what they do at all, right? And their impact is felt only by the writer. And I mean, honestly, you're paying them for a service, so if if their input is unwanted, just don't take it, right? I've been working with an editor now, and his input has been, um, I guess, valuable, but also not as much as I anticipated. Like, there's been less changes than what I would have expected to be
Mhm.
made to, you know, like my layouts and my dialogue and stuff like that. So it's weird. It's I guess it really depends upon the editor, but having someone who's like a professional editor in the comic book field to keep you on the rails at least lets you know that, you know, you're in heading in the right direction for developing a story that, you know, is going to be a successful 8 issue miniseries like what you're putting out
Yeah.
here. Now, the first issue was 27 pages. Yeah, I think I read it on Global Comics. That was a 20 24 27. How many
I think there's
pages?
24 pages of. I think there's 24 pages of story. Any other page would be
Okay.
like, back page cover.
Okay.
But I think there's 24 pages of story. Yeah.
Gotcha. So 24 pages of story in the first issue. How long is the second? Same?
22 pages.
Gotcha.
And second is actually the shortest in the entire series. Once, because I've written all the scripts, and I think we have one issue that gets as high as 33, 36 pages. So I don't think it, I'm not sure they ever dip below 24. I think 24 and 22 are the shortest, and then every issue after that is a little bulkier.
That's funny. Yeah, you have entered my dojo. It's that's the term. That's Monday nights, Mo. We know that that's Monday nights. I've been remiss. I've been completely ignoring the chat. Let me go back
Oh,
a
sure.
ways
Let's go.
and thank the people who are tuning in for showing up and you know helping us make the content. First off, we have the missing frequency girl, who you know who isn't here, making sure that the show goes smoothly, which is what her job is. But you know she's not feeling well, so it's okay. I'll suffer, and you'll suffer through my incompetent and inept interview, and somehow we'll make it through together, right? Connery came in to say hi to the chat. We also had Josh show up. Had that good line about Maya, so-called life, which honestly, every time I read the title of this, I my brain goes there. I want to say so-called life, not so-called living, right? We had Dean from Comics Mate. We also had your is that your sister, Brittany Maya?
Oh, that's my wife.
Your wife, and the reason that she came in, I think, is because you had raised your glass, and instead of
Oh yeah,
L'chaim, they thought that
tell
you
her
wanted
to
another. They want
yeah,
you
bring
thought you
another one,
wanted
bring
another
another one, bring
soda.
another one. If she's
Yeah.
listening, bring
Oh,
another drink.
okay. Bring another one. We had the Gooch from Diabolical Souls. Definitely glad to have Gooch with us. He's another show that you might want to go on and talk to him about comics. He's a great interviewer, much better than I am, especially when I'm by
You're doing great.
myself. We also got Jeremy, Ice and Fire 33. Bow. Thank you so much for stopping in, Jeremy. Glad to have you with us. We've got Jay Burtz. What is up, Jay Burtz? Glad to have Jeremy with us as well. And Ali from 656 Studios. Thanks so much for showing up, Ali. Noah says you missed your cousin. Okay, so let's turn our attention to the campaign then and to So-Called Living.
All right.
What's the premise?
The premise is basically it's like, what if we lived in a world where vampires, werewolves, and zombies were part of our everyday? They were just common day citizens. So they're not out and hiding. They still follow all the same rules of those characters, but their personalities are different and how people react to them are differently because they've always been around. They've always been part of our society. So in this world, they've they've never been somebody that's like hiding in the shadows and people don't believe in vampires and just a myth. It's like people believe in vampires like people believe that you're here talking to me now. It's just part of our reality.
There's just the livingly challenged or something like that, right?
So yeah, the I think I use the
Vitally
there's
challenged.
I think I there's a line in book one that's is it mortally challenged or
Mortally challenged? That could
it's
be,
in
it's
there. I know
probably
I
in
wrote it
there.
I wrote it a while ago. It's actually because you can read the first book free.
Yeah,
It's like
on Global
somewhere in the middle.
Comics. Yeah.
Yeah, on Global Comics. But yeah, so that's the setting. But the premise of the story is Jack, who's the guy eating the fries right there. He
Looks like a
yeah,
werewolf, but he's not.
that's
Looks
Jack.
actually a
No.
little bit like Phil Diaz, but he's not.
That's Jack, and he gets turned into a vampire, and he's got to deal with learning to adapt to this new way of living as a vampire. But in this world, vampires aren't your Bram Stoker's vampires. They're not your Twilight vampires. So they're not these brooding, uh, deep thoughts intellectuals that are like very emotionally connected to people and the thirst for blood. But he's got to
They're more
deal
like
with
True Blood vampires.
even less emotional. Like these guys, Nick and Casper, the two big guys that you see there in these panels, they're vampires, but they're more like bikers. So they're more like the cast of Sons of Anarchy. Actually, Nick is more like Butcher from The Boys. And when they talk about vampires, they're just kind of like cool guy bikers, heart like badasses, and they don't give a shit about the status quo. But they make fun of what they call forest fairies,
Forest, yeah, forest
yeah,
fairies.
and Jack is like forest fairy, like what's that? And Nick describes that as
Reference Twilight, yeah.
yeah, like pouty mouths, cloak wearing vampires flooding around, but getting all emotional. Like he describes it, and he doesn't like it. It's kind of like the same way a biker from Sons of Anarchy wouldn't like the preppy tennis club boy. Do you know what I mean? Like
Right.
they wouldn't like him. So that's the kind of relationship he has with those vampires. So it's not that they don't exist, but it's not they don't exist right now in the current story
It's
as it is.
interesting because you say in the first issue, you do make a note about Jack not having feelings anymore because he's a vampire.
It's not that
And
it's not that he doesn't have feelings. Nick says he doesn't feel feelings like that no more.
like okay, like that anymore, like compassion and remorse and stuff
It's
like that. And then
it
he does the whole thing where he mourns the passing of his girlfriend. He's like, huh, I don't feel anything. So what is it like when you become a vampire? You stop feeling certain feelings.
it's
And
it's not that you stop feeling those feelings. It's basically you've filtered out the fake feelings. Like so it's when you love somebody, it's like when you really love somebody or when you really feel that connection with people, then that feeling is real. But like he's not in a great relationship. So he feels obligated to be sad for this person. And
oh,
and
okay.
he's so but he's not. Like if you read this, she breaks up with him just before all this happens. So she didn't really like him. She was a nice person, but he's like a little weak-willed individual, and he just likes to have a girlfriend. And so that when Nick, it's not explained. I explain that later in the series, but because Nick does feel feelings for people himself, but it's only when it matters. So all this and this fact is like killing people that you don't really care for is not an issue because it's like an evolutionary thing for vampires because you can't be sad about everybody you kill because it's part of um, your way of living, right? You need to survive. But in this world, vampires don't have to kill to survive. There's services for them. You can go to a bar and get like blood shots. There's people's jobs who are to like donate blood and
So
for
like it is kind of
vampires.
like True Blood. Um,
In that way, yeah, there are some True Blood aspects to it for sure.
what's
But
up with
it's
the bunnies? The
that is
ever-growing bunny population. Is it they raise the bunnies so that they can get the blood from the bunny rabbits? Is that what's going on here? Like, why do we have this explosion of bunnies going on?
the bunnies is an issue that it's just addressed. Like this is the most we cover the bunnies in issue 1 is this panel here, and it's like talked about like as a crisis, but we don't go into why it's a crisis, and you
Right, I
go
know.
into that
I read the issue and I was
yeah
like, that's a non sequitur panel, and yet threatens our very way of life is a significant statement. So, what's
the,
going on?
as I can't say anymore on the bunnies because
Is it a spoiler?
as the story evolves, you'll get more and more insight on the bunny situation.
Right. They
So
must be important though, because you have a club, right? You have a club with the keychain membership. It's one of the
yeah,
add-ons, right? The so-called Living
yeah,
Blood Bunny
colony,
colony.
yeah.
So
And
is
actually,
it the blood source for the vampires? Is
I
it
can't
where
tell
they
you,
get the blood? Oh,
can't tell you.
come
But
on, man.
if you zoom out on
Does
the
the
page,
thimble go to jail or not?
if you zoom out on the page, you'll notice that the framework of all it's all bunny silhouettes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's yeah, there's definitely a bunny theme, and basically there's Jack's story, and then there's this underlining kind of like bunny story that's happening in the background, and eventually they will meet.
Okay. So if Jack's the protagonist, who are the antagonists?
I think there might be a panel with them here somewhere. Yeah, here I'll show you. I'll show you them. Scroll down the other way. Go in the other direction. Go to the add-ons. There you go.
Okay, the
These two.
add-ons.
Oh,
Yep.
at the top, the art at the top. Boom. So these guys are kind of like,
These two guys right here.
yeah, they're kind of like mob people. So they're mob guys, and the
They
guy
look
on the
like they're
right is
collecting vampire fangs.
that's what's in the baggie. So the guy on the right is the mob boss. The guy on the left is his right hand man.
But
That's
he's on the
Mister.
left. Well, actually, I guess no, that is his right hand man
That's
because that
his
would be
right.
where his right hand is. Yeah,
That's correct. That's
that makes
correct.
sense.
So that's his name's Rico, the guy you have on screen now, and the other guy is Mister DeLuca. So they Jack, although his story starts off weird, like kind of like it starts off almost like an episode of Friends meets
Yeah, you
vampires
mentioned that
because
earlier. You
yeah,
mentioned
because
the
it's lighthearted. Like
composition.
his first issue is his first problem is he can't get into his apartment because you have to be as a vampire you have to get invited in. There his apartment complex there's like a no vampire clause, so he can't get into his own apartment. So he's a homeless vampire. That's the first issue he has to deal with, and then in the second issue he just does things that people like everybody else knows the common vampire things, but he's in his habits and he does some stupid things, and it's all a little it's kind of tongue-in-cheek and fun, but then it's toward the end of issue 2 you start getting more of a dark undertone that starts happening. So basically Jack is going to get in way over his head with some very serious bad people like the mobsters, the guys that you saw down below. When I write for them, there's nothing necessarily funny about those two characters. They're very serious people,
Right.
and you see Mr. DeLuca there. He's on the
Yeah,
cover
he's
of
right
book 2.
here. He's on the right.
Yeah,
That guy right there. Yep. I
yeah,
think you have like the last page in the preview on Global Comics has that little scene with him and Rico and the baggie of vampire teeth.
yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
So there's definitely some sort of ominous conflict coming on the horizon.
Hmm.
Sort of like they're going to cross paths, and it's not going to be good for Jack. But if they're the antagonist, would you say there's a central conflict, or is it mostly like Jack against the world? If there is a central conflict, what are the stakes of that conflict?
The stakes is Jack's well-being. So there's a central conflict. Well, here there's the central conflict that Jack is dealing with, and then there's this global situation that's happening
With the
that their
bunnies.
conflict is yeah that their conflict is taking place in. So imagine like Twister, but then there's a Soprano storyline in there in the middle. So they got to deal with this like tornado event.
Oh, I was
But
gonna say Twister like the Milton Bradley game or the
no,
no,
like
okay.
the
You
movie
meant the
Twister.
movie.
So
Also,
they're
wow,
dealing.
what a deep cut, like back in time. Who remember I love that movie, but who remembers that? Like wouldn't reference something more recent.
What's the most recent? What's the most recent tornado movie?
That's a good question. I have no idea. So the tornado in this metaphor is significant. So there's a small tornado and then there's a global tornado. Would be like a disaster movie, right? That's
Yeah, yeah.
the
So
allusion that you're making.
yeah, so there's a disaster movie happening in the background, and then there's
Gotcha.
Jack's personal story, and he's a kind of oblivious to all of it for a while, but you see it building up on him. So it's very much you see Jack living his oblivious life, dealing with these small problems over here, right on this end,
Right.
and then this ominous thing cloud is coming, and he's got to deal with that. And as the reader, you'll know that it's bad. It's going to
Yeah.
end badly if it does end for Jack. Like it could end badly for Jack.
Right. So
So
it's like, you know, the day after tomorrow where there's like a global calamity that's going to befall people, but
yeah,
he's dealing with his own little personal trifles,
hmm
let's say, and he's oblivious to how those trifles either fit into or will be affected and directed by that more global catastrophe that's coming to affect and upend his life
yeah.
entirely.
And for the record, the game Twister is a lot older than the movie Twister.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's that. But when you said Twister being your gaming
Yeah, yeah.
history, yeah. Also,
I've
because
never
I'm not
actually played
looking
Twister.
directly at you, I'm looking at the Kickstarter page because I can't do both. See you, so you could be making faces at me right
I'm
now. I
doing
have
like
no idea.
tornadoes. I'm doing tornado things. The tornado sign.
Right?
I got my drink refilled, by
Sharknado
the way.
sequel. Oh, I like that. I like
Except it's
that. Yeah.
vampires. Vampire
Sons of
NATO.
Banicula. Nice. Very nice, Mo. That's another deep cut. I don't know if people remember Banicula. All right. So why don't we talk about the campaign then? You said this is your first campaign page that you've designed as far
What's
as like
first? It's the
layouts
first
and
Kickstarter.
assets.
It's the first Kickstarter I've ever run, so I had to learn how to do a Kickstarter. Like
Yeah.
I've done videos for other people that's ended up on their page. Like there's a campaign right now, Mythwind for board games. If you go to their page, so many videos on there because I did a lot of videos for them. But other than making the video for them, because I know how to make video content, I don't touch the back end of Kickstarter at all. They take the videos, they link the videos, they put them on the page. So I had a lot to learn, and I did a lot of studying of like what do comic book Kickstarter pages look like, and what. But what I find for me is I found comic book Kickstarters. I found them the pages a little more complicated to follow than board game Kickstarters. So I designed this closer to a board game Kickstarter with less tiers. So there's only 5 tiers you can back in this, and where I've seen a lot of comic book ones that have like 18 to 20 tiers.
Right. With
But I
all the
was like, oh,
different
maybe
cover selections and
yeah.
like
So I
that.
was like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe that's the way to go. But if you look at those tiers, most of them are like 0, 0, 2, 4, 0. And then there's one that's like 60, 80, 120. I was like, because they only really have 3 or 4 that hit a lot that people are getting. So I was trying to focus on those 3 or 4 and not flood it with a bunch of options. So again, it just comes from like I don't know if this is the better choice. This is just um, my what I deduced from the my studying I did because I did my homework on like what Kickstarter like the top grossing ones. What do the top grossing Kickstarters have? What do I need?
Gotcha.
How do they run their Kickstarter? So I did a lot of research behind that before I built this page.
Yeah, I mean, it shows it's a polished page. There are things that I would have done differently, but that's, that's neither here nor there. That's entirely, I guess, of personal taste. As far as the tiers are concerned, let's take a look at those. You've got
Sure.
the digital, which is
Mm-hmm.
books one and two,
Yep.
of the standard covers for 14 Canadian, which they say here is about $11. So obviously there's going to be no shipping on that. I had a
No.
question because we
Sure.
are now entering the dojo portion of the show, right? Um, why would you put out the digital for $10 if the first issue is already free to read on the campaign?
The reason I put out the digital free is because I wanted people to like. I guess this. I put it out there because I wanted people to know me. Back when you asked me earlier what I was reading, I said I don't. It's hard to feel confident in indie comic books because you don't know the writer. So you're always taking a leap of faith. So I wanted people to know me as a writer. I wanted them to know my character. So I wanted to give them like a free sample. It was like, here's
Yeah.
half my Kickstarter
Yeah.
for free, so you can read
Honestly,
it
a
and get an
lot
idea.
of people are doing that. They're using Global Comics specifically for that reason. They put their previews, their teasers, their all
Mhm.
that sort of stuff up there. That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking for is why you're charging $14 for what would effectively be one issue of a digital comic because we've all read
It's
issue one.
Yeah, it's just asking for support. That's it. It's
Oh,
just like
okay.
I'm not a pre-order system, right? So
Right.
it's like I need to get funded for these books to happen so I can continue the story. And book one will always be available digitally
Right.
um, forever. So when I do books 3 and 4 and five and six, book one will always be available as a free one that people can go check out. So that's the reason. Like I knew that
You
question was good.
heard the Canadian slip in there just a little bit, guys. Oot. I
like
like it.
like I know the like I knew that question was going to come up, but I'm just trying to be honest. It was like I could have
I mean,
just given not.
I would have dropped the price down to $7 Canadian because it's more attractive that way, especially
Mm,
since you know that for 25 Canadian you're getting both physicals and also the digitals, and that then makes it feel like the physicals are worth more rather than it just being $10 or $11 more than the
mm.
digital content. So now the
The
books themselves, two books are $11 over the so two books into a lead's like $5.50. So then these physical issues really don't feel like they're worth that much more in comparison to the digitals. You see how like the consumer brain works? You
mhm,
know this though. When you shop for board games, you look at the price breakdowns of the different things that are on the tiers, right?
mhm.
Like if someone's offering something for $10 and then the next step up is something for 15, the thing that they're adding on in the step up is effectively worth $5, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the again the whole I guess thought behind it is I looked at Kickstarter as like legitimately what it was initially built for, which was
Right.
please support me. I want to make this, and I want to show you half. Yeah, you could say like,
How much of the books are
why would I
done?
pay for two? How much they're good to go to print.
Oh, so you don't actually need the help making
No, I
them.
do. No, well, I've paid out of pocket. Like I'm down in the
Right,
hole, so I'm in
right.
the
That's
zero.
but that's the
But
thing. Like it,
I need I need to print it. Like printing's not
yes,
free.
I know you need to print it. That would make you a pre-order service.
So
That would make this a
um,
pre-order service. All of the art is
yeah.
done. You don't need to actually do any of the invest any of this money in the production of the art. You simply need to order the print run.
Well,
So,
it's the same thing because I'm putting the money in advance. Like, what's the difference of me putting in the money after you give it to me? Like, I want to try to get the books to people sooner, so I have to
right,
pay. I have to pay Marco, and so
right.
like I'm in the hole for all these things. Like, I don't have any money to do this.
Buddy,
So
I've done
basically,
this too.
I'm
I've done this several
yeah.
times also. I know exactly the situation that
So
you're in.
it's like it's not a pre-order system at all because you look at other there's tons of companies out there that they don't need Kickstarter. That's a pre-order system. They don't need Kickstarter to make their product, but they're doing it to do it as a pre-order system. I need Kickstarter. Like the money I've put into the art already, I can only do that for these first two books. I have no more money to put into the art for books 3 and 4, 5 and
Oh, that's
six.
I was under the impression that it was already done. I asked you how
No,
much
no,
of the
no,
art was done.
no.
Just these
These
two
two
issues are
books.
done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's why I said in my video, I was like, I need to fund these so I could do books 3 and 4, and then
Yeah,
fund
no, that
that so I could
makes
do books
perfect
five and
sense.
six.
Yeah, that
That's
makes
what I'm
perfect
doing.
sense. Um, as far as like the pre-order element, why aren't you like making a mailing list or something, or accessing an audience elsewhere to bring them in to support the Kickstarter? Are you mainly relying on Kickstarter's algorithm to send it to other fans on the website of comic books, comic book readers, people that back
I,
comics?
I'm gonna be straight with you. When it comes to attracting people to Kickstarter, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I said, I've never, I'm not a marketing person. Like I've done game design, done things like that. But when it came to doing that stuff, other people marketed it out because I worked for a company and there was a different department that was like, I'll get people's eyes on this. So
Hmm.
like the best I could do is like I paid for some ads on like Facebook and but I was like, I
I
don't even
hate
know what kind of
Facebook ads. They don't do
I,
anything.
that's just like I don't know how much that even did. I'm promoting it a bit on my board game coffee
But your
page,
board game, it's a
but
board game channel.
that's
Yeah.
board game channels, right? So like what you're talking about is like I'd love to do that. How do I do that? Like I have no idea. So
Right.
I love like you yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but I have no idea how to even start doing that.
Honestly, it sounds to me like a lot of, I mean, I'd say at least 200, 250 to 300 creators that I know use Kickstarter precisely for that reason, because they don't know how to market their stuff. They don't
Mm,
have a access to comic book fans and comic book readers out there who would buy through a pre-order system their comic book. They're going to a website like Moths to a Flame that offers the service of sending the signal out about their book to a large
mm,
collection of people who support crowdfunding. Because, let's face it, you're relying on Kickstarter to shop this book to the Kickstarter audience, and you're giving it a home where other people you do tell about the book can go and get it. It's not, you're not actually like it,
what?
you don't, you're not like, as far as like the crowdfunding thing, the I guess the philosophy behind crowdfunding, you do need to print the book, right? You have your proof
Mm,
of concept already on Global
mm,
Comics, the digital version of book one, right? But you don't, and much like myself and every other indie creator that I know, you're going to Kickstarter because we don't have a pre-order system. We don't have access to tens of thousands of comic book readers out there that we can show our preview page to and be like, hey, would you be interested in this? That's, you're not in Diamond, right? You're not in Previews magazine. You're not shopped in Lunar. You don't have access to that demographic of people, that
mm.
consumer base. And that's why using Kickstarter stands out. You don't have any marketing experience, neither do I. So we turn to Kickstarter and kind of let them do the marketing angle on things.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Because again, I come at this like I don't know what to do, and the only things I could think of was like, do I pitch to Image? Do I
No,
do
you
like
don't.
this? Like, so I didn't know what to do.
You
So
need
then
a
I
you need a
saw,
finished book to pitch to Image, and you also need a
oh,
distribution and a printing plan. They're going to ask you to front the print
oh,
run, or they're going to ask you to do they're going to ask you to do the book on a development budget, which gives them percentage points on production. And the question is your artist going to be able to be paid off of that pre-production budget? And generally, the indie artists will be able to make their money drawing the book off of that pre-production budget, but that leaves no money for you, and then you're on board to fund a percentage of the printing process. So once
all right,
again, you're in a situation where you're out a whole bunch of cash
all right.
on something
Well,
there is no guaranteed pre-order for.
sounds like I made the better option here.
Well, I mean, you also
Of
don't
the
have a
just,
catalog, so that it's not likely that Image would pick you up. You don't, I mean, I don't know how many people you know in comics that might be able to vouch for you. A lot of these people who are doing these indie books, some of which are really good, are complete unknowns, right? And it's like
mm,
anyone who studies film and has a really good eye for film and understands the medium of film can make an indie film, and then it gets shown at Sundance, right? Usually it's nice to have a little bit of education going into it, to have some connections to people through, I guess,
mm,
professional relationships or education. If you've gone to film school, you know how to do things, how to set up a production, how to find people to work on your production staff, how to get cameramen, how to find actors, all that other stuff. But any amateur can actually do that. It doesn't, require a skilled professional exclusively to make these things, because it's art. The same could be said for comic books. A great writer can come from anywhere. A great artist can come from anywhere, but without the proper setup, the proper relationships, they're not going to get into the industry
mm.
of comics. That's the issue. You're not worried about being a great writer. If you're a great writer, you are. right? You're putting out a great book. It's a great story with great characters and great dialogue. It is. You're trying to be commercially successful at it, and there, my friend, is the rub, right? The commercial success element, so that you can continue to make the product. All right, let me get to the end of this real quick. As far as the add-ons of the campaign, you've added
Mhm.
your John Hancock as one of the options, right? Your signature, and
Yeah,
once again, the bunny keychain, which is probably the thing I am most interested in on on this campaign. I really want the bunny keychain. I
there
don't
you
know
go.
why. I think it's freaking adorable.
It is
Um,
adorable.
and I know that it's part of the lore, right, on this
Yeah,
in this world, especially from having read that one panel on that one page in the beginning where the bun apocalypse is coming effectively. I really like the art on the book. I think your artist did a great
yeah,
job with
yeah.
the
Marco killed it.
cartoony, very illustrated style. Marco did a great job. The tiers are pretty affordable, I'd say. The special covers, are they Kickstarter exclusive? Um,
Yeah, I mentioned that they're exclusive-ish, as in they are only you can the only way you can get them, and I have it is I say I have the asterisks is they're exclusive to here, and if you see me at a con and I have any extras, I'll sell them there
right,
because
so
I'm
they're
gonna
not
have
going to
to.
go to stores.
No, 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 no. And so I'm
Is
gonna
there
have
a
to get
plan to
us.
take this to stores?
No. I
Okay,
might
so
like if I get some extras like of the base of the standard, I might put them in a local comic book store if they take them on like
gotcha.
was it consignment. But that's it. But there's no plan to take them to stores. No.
Very
S-
few people sell on consignment, but yes, I agree that, putting out the basic book is, the way to go. Keeping the exclusive covers more exclusive. That's a very common practice for
mm,
all of us. Having a Kickstarter exclusive cover, like exclusively exclusive only for Kickstarter, tends to justify the upcharge a little bit.
mm.
So like you
Well,
have yep,
the only reason there's like is because I'm gonna do what's that called? Like I'm not doing digital prints. I'm gonna do offset print, and I think it's called offset printing.
yeah,
It's
why are
like
you
a
doing
printing
offset?
press.
Well,
Because
I mean, all
that's where
printing presses are, everything that is
I
printed prints through a press. It's either a digital or an offset, and sometimes
yeah,
they
so
use a digital offset. So,
I'm doing offset,
right.
and
Why?
so I'm it was it was cheaper if I
Gotcha.
got
Okay.
larger amounts. So and it was where I was like I had friends of mine that have done Kickstarters in the past, and that's what they did it. So I was like, okay, I'll try them, and they said
Digital's
yeah, they were
actually
pretty good.
cheaper.
Oh well, not this. It seemed like the offset was cheaper if you got more. So I was going
Yeah.
to get a lot of the standard. So it's going to be
Ah,
a lot. So I was going to over like if depending on how much it makes, get more of the standard. And for the exclusives, I am going to get like a really low run, and but like whatever,
and print those
depending what.
digitally.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
that's a
no.
smart way to do it. You are right about bulk ordering offset
So yeah,
comics. That leads me to, I guess, my question: how many books are you ordering?
I don't know just yet.
How many
Like
do you plan on ordering?
I was thinking of getting like a large number, like
How many is a large number?
I'm thinking. It's like 1200 for the standard issues.
Okay.
So
It's
1200 stand. I was thinking
it's
1200
not that
standard.
big. That's not
No,
that big. 5,000 is a
yeah.
standard first edition, like first printing. A lot of
Mm.
people do like a 5,000 order if they're planning on going commercial with it, going to cons, selling it on a website,
Well,
selling it at
it's gonna be 1200 of
shops.
each of the standard. So it'd be like, so you'd have like, so 1200 of issue one, 1200 issue two. And then I was going to do a limited run of issue of the Elite and the Sex Pot. But if there was any sort of overrun, that's why I say there might be extras. And if there's extras, you can buy them at the show.
Right. When we did
That was it.
ours, we did think 7 variant covers, and we ordered 5,000 books, and we did that allowed us to get like the main book down to say 2,000, and then to divide up the others
Mm.
into like 500, 500, or 250, 300, stuff like that, that allowed us to, fulfill the order for the large volume
Mm.
by dividing it up amongst the smaller runs for the alternate or variant covers. Because most presses will just do a $50 plate fee,
Mm.
and they'll just change the cover because the interiors and the bindings are all going to be the same anyway.
The Oh, what was I going to say? That like the part of why I was getting 1,200 of each too was the idea of so I could take the standards to cons and kind of sell them there,
Yeah,
and anything that would be then I'd also include them in for the next Kickstarter when I do issues 3 and 4. It'd be like
you'll
if
get
you're
catch up.
joining in,
Yeah.
yeah, you can get the catch up issues. So I figured I'd have those behind, and I thought like 24, 2,400 or
Yep.
2,400 would be plenty.
A lot of people will do a first printing on the campaign and then do a second printing of the first issue and
Mm,
second issue for the second campaign, making a different cover available. But that's not like a necessary thing to do. You can
mm,
just sell your overstock on the next campaign. But if you do it, it means that you can keep the first order smaller, which makes a first edition, first printing at least a little bit more collectible. And
mm.
then the second edition having a new cover makes it attractive to people who didn't get in on the first one. Well, at least they get this really cool cover. And then the all in, that's a really affordable all in. Can you tell me what's in your I guess this would be like your top tier. It's all of the covers plus
Yeah, so
the keychain.
you get no, you don't get the keychain. You get it's all in. I mentioned like you get all the covers. You get the digital one with all the digital because the digital version that you get with all the tiers are you get that digital cover. So this one you're going to get what I think I can't remember what I called it. I called it like the super or the uber digital. So you get the book and then all of the different covers digitally, and then you get the 6 actual physical books. But the
Gotcha.
keychain isn't
So
in this. The keychain was an add-on.
so the keychain's only an add-on.
Yeah,
Interesting. Very interesting.
and
And it's
I,
an
I want to
add-on for zero additional shipping.
correct. Yeah, and we make
So
those by
how are
hand,
you
just so you
shipping them?
know.
But you made them by
We
hand?
we're making them. We have a laser cutting machine, so
Oh, that's
we've made those.
cool.
So we have one. If I was home, I could show you the one we have, and
But you're
it's made
not.
out
You're
of
in the granny room.
correct. uh, it's made out of white and black acrylic,
Okay. Yep.
so it looks pretty much just like that
Just
image.
like
That's
what's pictured in the yeah.
that's a concept image, yeah. So, but it looks pretty much just like that. Like it's because
Um,
that was the file I used to make it.
right. So how are you shipping? How are you planning to fulfill?
We are shipping. So the plan is, and I had to learn a lot about. I was asking all my buddies like, how do they do it? So all the books are going to be shipped to me, and then I do the labels myself, and I take them to a place called this shipping service called Chit Chats, which seems to be popular with the people I've talked to that have done Kickstarters, and Chit Chats is just a lot cheaper. What would normally cost me like I don't know, $15 or $20 to ship. Chit Chats charges like 7 to 10.
That's pretty
So
good.
yeah, so it's
And
like
I
half
checked out
price.
your international prices. How are you managing those? Because
How am I
your prices
managing them?
to the UK and Australia are really pretty good.
Those are just so the 2 book cost is basically I'm not the padding on those costs, if any, is cents because the changes
No,
my
there's
the cost.
it's very little. It's very
Yeah,
affordable, honestly.
and
$12 Canadian across the border to the US isn't bad at all, especially when you
no,
consider most people here in the States are charging $10 US within the country and
I actually
$20 to go outside. I hate that.
I tried to back a book from well, I tried to like I went in to get the physical, but the physical book was $10 and the shipping
And
from the
the shipping
States
was
was
20. Yeah.
$23.
Yeah, that's
So
why I
I
don't
was
do it.
like,
When I see shipping prices that are more expensive than the book, that's an automatic nope for me.
yeah, so I that's why I wanted to keep the costs low. And as far as the States, like I want to be able to spread, it's more important to me that people like obviously I want to make money on this so I can continue doing it, but it's important to me that I want to get so-called living to people because I it's a good story and I want people to
Right.
see it. And again, so I'm certain parts in the States, the cost that I have there is enough to cover it, but then other parts I'm
You
just
take a
eating the
loss.
difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I did the same thing. We took a loss. We took a serious loss going to Australia, but we ate that out of the profit that we made on the book going there, and we're confident doing that because we were making a very good return with very good margins everywhere
Mm.
else. But like shipping to Australia at the time that we were shipping, which was during the supply chain crisis, shipping was $75 a package.
Whew.
So like it's yeah, when you're
Yeah.
selling the package for 75 and shipping is 75, but you're advertising it at 30, You're eating a $35 difference on the package because you want to ship it to Australia. We did manage to get a bulk shipment order over there to a friend who then distributed the packages locally and mailed them out for us, which saved us a bunch of cash. But still, like you will, if it's important to you, you can take a bullet, on one
And
thing and make up for it in a different way if you're trying to be good at the business.
and again, this a lot
Hey,
of
Will.
this campaign is around, and my wife totally supports me in this. It's about we're taking lots of bullets because
Yep,
like the
you will.
I am asking for like well, it looks different in the States, but if you're looking at this page in Canada, I'm asking for 5,000. We met our goal,
Yep.
and but 5,000, yeah, because right in the it looks like less. Every time I see this number from like an American page, it freaks me out. I was like, oh my god, no, we're good.
Yeah,
That's
that'll
the
cover your
conversion.
initial print costs.
Yeah,
You're
so
still
yeah,
not
and again,
recouped on the art. You're not going to get
no,
recouped on the art until you sell off the back end, which is why you have to get a large enough print order to sell commercial or not commercially
yes,
in
you nailed
retail.
it. That's exactly it.
I know
So like,
what this is. Most of the audience is all indie comic book creators.
yeah, I know.
All of us
So
do this dance. The guy right now, this man in the comments section, Travis Gibb, like I don't know if you know who he is, but he's pretty much the guy who helped us get our perspective and our footing in indie comics through crowdfunding. This guy has done, God, I can't even count all the books that he's done. But yeah, he's just kind of casually watching the show, commenting, bantering with Mo Biggs, the people that you're, selling yourself your book and your all of your services or not services, all of your items, your products to. They're all people who have participated in the fellowship of kickstarting or crowdfunding comics. That is what you're doing it as your first time. Because
and,
no, why does Neff not love me? I do love you. I do love you.
and like I understand that like I don't have to explain the nuances to this to other indie creators. Like they know because everybody's if you like if you love the art, then you're going to take the hit to get it out to
Yeah,
people.
you will. Absolutely. And when you look back on it, you're going to be glad that you did. Um, I paid my artist on my first book incredibly well, incredibly so, especially for a first time artist with no credits to his name who's never published anything before. And if I calculated that art as part of my final price for my crowdfunding campaign, I would not have made my money back. Now, if we were just talking the physical print run and all of the merch and all of the shipping, packaging, and all that other stuff, yeah, we made money on that campaign. But it does not pay for the art. The art you have to pay for when you go commercial and sell in retail. If you're selling at conventions or you're selling in stores or you're getting distribution wherever, that's when you're going to be starting to make the recoup on cost. And even then, you won't make a shit ton on the art. You only do that when you get orders. This is a game of win by volume.
Yeah.
And that's why getting the book out there and getting it to people, getting them to see it, is the right philosophy going in. That's why putting up the preview on Global Comics is the right move, so that people can read the entire first issue and know what they're getting into. So you are playing the game pretty well from the jump or off the rip. And I would expect nothing less of a guy who does board game reviews on his gaming channel with 24 years in the gaming industry. I would expect you to play the game well, right?
I'm trying my best. I was like was it sell out with me?
Yeah, you sell out with me. I will. I will, Travis.
But yeah, everything you said is right. Like that's exactly what was going through my head for all of it. I'm hoping to eventually recoup costs based on like going to shows. Like we've already started booking conventions up ahead, like like because you have to book now to like be able
Yep.
to sell books in July. So, anyways, yeah. So, and as far as costs go, yeah, we're eating a lot of the costs for like Australia,
Yep.
UK, but I just wanted to keep it low because it's more important for me that people get the book than
Yep.
me
No,
make it
you have the
rich.
right idea, the right philosophy. You're financially comfortable to the point where you can afford to do this. It's not going to break you, but at the same time, you
Mm,
don't want to be throwing money out the window. You want to have a way to recoup. Booking cons is the right move. I don't know how many conventions you can get to down here in the States, but there's a whole list of conventions that are worth going to and not worth
mm.
going to. Travis knows quite a few of the places that are better for people selling comics than for people, cosplaying as Naruto, because conventions skew in different directions, right? So definitely get the jump on that. But honestly, I mean, if you are going to do a $1,200 order and you're thinking about fulfilling what say 200 books of the standard cover, so that would be 400 books total. Then let's say of the variants you're gonna do 30 to 50. Yeah, you're doing less than half of your order fulfilled. You might want to raise your order to 2K. That's what I would do 2,000 of my first two issues because it's two issues, not the one.
Mhm.
But don't listen to me. I always overestimate, what I will need, so I always have extras laying around, which is always nice because then I can be like, hey, you're a friend of mine. Here, have a book. Like, hey, do you want to read this? Here you go. But those are the people that live next door, right? Most people they get a good deal on the crowdfunding campaign.
I actually don't have a lot of like a lot of my close friends, like my people, they don't read comics. So like
You
I
hesitated for the word comics. I was
like
about to agree with you. They don't read. Yeah,
no, they don't read comics.
they don't
They
read.
like I joined Lesser Known Comics, that group, because I don't know if you've heard of them before. I heard about them from another YouTube channel, and he was
Yep.
like, "Oh, I should introduce you to Lesser Known Comics," and I met them, and they were great. I met Mark, who runs that group, and they welcomed me in, even though I'm not using their system right now. I'm
Yep.
sitting in on their chats, and I'm
Yep.
learning, and I'm asking a lot of questions because I have nobody to talk comic books to. I have nobody to talk indie comic books to. So I'm
This
like
guy right
by
here.
myself in this.
This guy right
Travis,
here. He's got a
Travis.
Discord. I don't remember to use Discord. I'm a boomer. And Twitter is about the closest that I can get to trying to use social media. I don't even use Facebook or Instagram. That's Frequency Girl's job. But yeah, Travis is great at steering people through the process. LKC is fantastic. Mark Bernal calls me the Grim Reaper of his hopes and dreams or something like that. And I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get the title renamed to Grim Reaper of Bad Ideas because those are the things that I kill. But that's we'll have to work it out in when I do accept an official position at LKC. Mo says you may have found more success with moderately popular comics. Yeah, it's good. All right,
That's good.
so last question here. A lot of people say the success in crowdfunding, I guess the most common piece of advice is to pick a platform and grow your audience. Do you agree? And how have you gone about doing it?
As far as like so-called living goes, I I don't think you should stick to one platform. Although when I look at like Board Game Coffee, my board game channel, like I focused on YouTube and Instagram. So like YouTube's the primary, Instagram's secondary, and then everything else I can't keep up with. It's too much. Like, I have a Facebook page we don't do much with. I have a Twitter account that I never use. Um, but it's hard. The more you spread yourself out, the harder it is. So for So-Called Living, I started an Instagram account, and I wanted to share like Marco's artwork, but it feels weird because it's not my artwork. So I'm just sharing. I'm trying to share his and do the story, but at the same time, it's like I'm so busy creating. It's just another thing for me because I'm also trying to maintain my board game coffee channels. I'm trying to design games during the day. I'm trying to write scripts for So-Called Living. I got a toddler, so
Welcome to the
it's
life, bro.
another
Welcome to the
thing.
life. Yeah.
So I have to like schedule time for it. So I think I gotta do something where it's like I schedule a day, and for that day I make a month's worth of content because I don't know. So I think to grow, I'd say focus on like a channel or two. So if it's gonna be
Right.
YouTube, have YouTube, focus on YouTube, and have something supporting that, like Instagram, pointing people to YouTube.
And if someone wanted to, I guess I'm lying that it wasn't the last question. This is the last question. If
Sorry.
someone wanted to get started on YouTube or in crowdfunding, would you have any advice for them? If so, what would it be?
Now, if you're going to get started on YouTube, there's been so much advice I've heard of like, oh, you have to be consistent. You have to be like every week at the same time, blah, blah, blah. And in my experience, that hasn't been necessarily the case. It works for people, but like my subs have grown in the last month or two, and I've put out the least amount of content that I've ever put out because it's not the amount of content you put out, it's the quality of content you put out. So if you put in, and if you do things that are more like evergreen content. So I focus on evergreen content. Things are like how to plays or reviews are good because people, if it's especially if you're reviewing something that you'll know people will come back to forever. Like if you review movies in the theater, sure, but once the movie's out of the theater, people are less likely to look for a
It's
review
not
because
really that
it's free
evergreen.
to check
Yeah.
out, right? But you do a review for a board game, well, you always have to buy that board game before you shell out money. Then you might want to check it out. How to plays are great. Once I did how to plays, then I really increased it. So how to videos are great because people are always going to want to know how to do this. So figure out what you want to do. If you want to do just something casual, something that's easy, like just a conversation piece, then that's great because a lot of people like watching that. But it's might not be evergreen content unless you have like a YouTube chatty format. Then people, well, not a YouTube, sorry, a podcast format that people just like listen to in the background. But for me, my experience is how tos. If you do how tos
Hmm.
and do how tos, focus on the quality more than the quantity, and that's my biggest tip as far as making a YouTube channel because I think right now we surpassed 16,000 on YouTube, so we're doing all right
Yeah,
there.
I noticed it's a 16 point something at this point. So yeah, you're doing pretty good, I'd say, in
Yeah.
building that audience on YouTube. How long have you been at it?
6 years,
Okay.
but we had like it's like in the morning, the beginning was slow, then we had a spike, then we kind of load, and then once we got into the Kickstarter, the how to plays, then it like took off again. Um, but yeah, so it took 6 years to get there, but now it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Like, I
It
know people
is.
that have
Yep.
gotten
A
there
lot
like
of time.
surpassed me in 2 years, because they have good quality, relevant content. Oh, another thing you can do is if you can get things early and fast, you can get the information before everybody because there's a lot of people that want to see things early. Then you also got them. It doesn't have to be evergreen if everybody wants to see it right away.
Mo
What
says,
is
focus on how-tos. That's all well and good for you. But what about people who don't know how to do anything? No offense, Neff. Appreciate it. Well, that was a good one. I like that. I like that. All right, that's the note we're going to go out on. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We really enjoy having these discussions, and you, the viewer, are what makes that possible. So if you liked the content, please click the like and the subscribe, and check out So-Called Living on Kickstarter. I think they've got what, 26 days, 27 days still to go,
Yeah,
I
yeah, we
believe.
did. We got lucky. We funded in like 2 days, and under two
Yeah.
days, so it's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. 27 days to go. So you got a while, but check it
Yeah,
out nevertheless. You never know if he's going to sell out of something. Um, and if you liked, I said, the content, subscribe. If you want to know when we go live next, click the bell for notifications and tune into the frequency. We will see you next time.